Now, children living with long COVID will be represented at the Scottish COVID inquiry. The charity Long COVID Kids, which campaigns for support for young people with the condition, has just been given core participant status at the inquiry, where hearings are expected to begin this summer. Well, Helen Goss is from the charity. And Helen, your daughter Anna has long COVID. Before we get on to the inquiry itself, just tell me how she's been impacted.
Hi, Graham. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yes, she is. She's sitting right next to me right now. She's absolutely exhausted. She did think that she might be able to come on and say a few words to you, but she's having a lot of pain today in her legs. She's been suffering for 3 years now. In fact, today is her COVID anniversary, which is not something to celebrate. She's had 3 infections and each one has made her worse. And now, unfortunately, her mobility is impacted so badly that she quite often needs to use a wheelchair, and she hasn't had any education for 3 years. So it really is quite a dire situation, unfortunately.
And how's that affected her mentally as well? I mean, you'll notice a huge change in her, surely.
Yeah, it absolutely has. And I think it's important to recognise that, yes, her mental health is definitely low, but it is because she is suffering from a chronic illness and disability now. And, her life is much smaller. She doesn't get to go out very much. She doesn't see peers, and she's not able to do the things that she used to do. She used to be very active, very fit, and do all kinds of things, swimming, horse riding, and now she can't do any of those things. So yes, she is very down. So we do try to find little things every day just to kind of cheer her up, make her a bit happy, spark a bit of joy, but it can be very difficult.
Does it affect children, long COVID, in the same way as it affects adults?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, it affects them in the fact that they get it the same as adults, but we do see slightly different symptoms in children. So, for example, with children, we do see quite a lot more mobility issues, and we see less respiratory issues and more sort of gastrointestinal, neurological problems and things like that. So, while they're not identical, it still comes under the umbrella of long COVID, and they definitely have been harmed by COVID infection and continue to be harmed by COVID infection, unfortunately, which is why we're so happy that now we're going to be represented in the inquiry.
Why is it so important that your charity, Long COVID Kids, the charity that you're part of, why is it so important that it is part of the inquiry and that children have their voices represented?
Yeah, thanks. That is a really good question. It's so important because, since the beginning of the pandemic, children and young people who've developed long COVID, they really have been largely ignored, and they have had to fight so hard to be heard, to be believed, to get the healthcare support, the education support that they need, while, they're suffering with a chronic illness and varying degrees of disability. So it's really important that their experiences are spotlighted and highlighted so that we can learn from, the mistakes that have been made this time. We do not want to make these same mistakes again.
What do you think could have been done differently?
Oh, so much. How long have you got?
Give us a couple of examples then.
Well, for a start, I mean, we really could use some updated public health messaging. I mean, at the moment, we're kind of stuck in 2020. We need to move along with the research that is emerging and put this into our public health messaging and educate and inform society, health, social care, education professionals on the harms that can come to children from SARS-CoV-2. We need to adopt a policy of clean air, the same as we do clean water. We wouldn't have our children drinking dirty water. We don't want them breathing dirty air. So, let's push this forward, but there needs to be a will and ambition from the Scottish Government to do that. And at the moment, unfortunately, there isn't.
And Helen, just briefly, what is the prognosis? What do doctors say? That hopefully, just in time, Anna will get over this? It's
a really difficult question to answer. There are so many people working so hard all over the world trying to figure out the mechanisms and pathology that underpin long COVID. So there is hope, and there are treatments for symptoms that can improve quality of life. It's just whether families can access these treatments for their children, which is the barrier that we're facing right now. So there is hope for the future, but I don't know is truly the answer.
OK, well, we'll cross our fingers for you. Helen Goss, thanks so much indeed for that. From the charity Long COVID Kids. You're